It's the 80s Experience on FM 88.5 KSBR with J.J. Buchanan. They have sold over 13 million albums and over 6 million singles worldwide. They are known for their great fusion of rock and roll and rhythm and blues, landing 6 American #1 hits. Mr. John Oates of Hall & Oates. John, how we doing this morning, my friend?
Okay, man. I'm just doing what I do, touring on the road with my band.
We will definitely talk about what you're working on today. But, John, I know you were born in New York City and raised right outside of Philadelphia. Now, tell me, when you were growing up, John, who were you listening to? Who were the major musical influences on you growing up as a kid?
Well, I started out listening to a little bit of big band when I was really young because of my parents, and then moved into early rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Elvis, Little Richard, things like that. And then in the 60s, I got into folk music when the folk boom kind of happened in America. A lot of traditional American musicians were being rediscovered, like bluesmen and things like that. And I got into everything from Mississippi John Hurt, Doc Watson, Joan Baez, Dylan, Dave Van Ronk, stuff like that. And I did a lot of that, and then into the early R&B stuff of the early 60s with Curtis Mayfield and, the early, Motown and all that stuff.
Okay, wonderful. And what was the Masters one of the first groups you were a part of when you were growing up?
Well, yeah. I joined that band when I was in 8th grade, and we stayed together until we were 12th grade in high school, and we recorded one single at the end of that stint, and then the band broke up. That's when I met Daryl, actually.
Okay, wonderful. And how did you exactly meet Daryl? I know you guys were both going to the same school, is that correct?
Yeah, we were both at Temple University, but we didn't know each other, and he had a group, and I had a group, and we both had these singles out, the one I just mentioned, and he had a group called the Temptones, I had a group called the Masters, and their routine played on Philadelphia radio at the same time. That's kind of we met through mutual, we were supposed to perform our singles and lip sync our singles at this radio station event. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of met in the hallway, kind of leaving that place, and that was it.
How did you guys come up with that first recording contract?
Well, it was kind of a long involved story. We were in New York, and we weren't really getting any traction, and we decided on our own that we'd go to L.A., and just because we had never been there, really, there was no other really reason.
Right.
And we just went there, and we started gigging around and playing small little venues, little folky kind of venues, just Daryl and I, no band. That's how we got our first deal. A guy found us and thought that he really liked what we were doing, and he had an association with Atlantic Records back in New York. So he kind of sent us back to New York to audition for Atlantic, and we auditioned for Aretha Martin, who was the main producer there, who had been producing Aretha Franklin and among other people, and Aretha really liked us, and he was the one that basically signed us to Atlantic Records.
And the great album Abandoned Luncheonette, the very first hit single, She's Gone. Now, I've heard different stories, John. Was that inspired by, I should say, a New Year's Eve mishap?
Yeah, it actually was. There was a girl that I was seeing, and I asked her if she wanted to go out on New Year's Eve, and she never showed up. And I just sat in the apartment, and I started strumming on my guitar, and kind of came up with this chorus idea. It was very kind of a folky acoustic kind of thing. And Daryl heard it. He came in, I guess, the next day or whatever, and liked it. He sat down at the piano and started playing this really cool piano groove, and next thing you know, we had a song.
Very cool. And in 1975, the great self-titled album hit the scenes, and Sarah Allen was Daryl Hall's girlfriend at the time, and Sarah's sister, Janet, did she have something to do with the songwriting on the tune Sarah Smile? How did that all come about?
Daryl wrote all the music for Sarah Smile, and he and I collaborated on the words. Sarah Allen didn't start writing lyrics with us until the late 70s into the 80s, and then Janet Allen didn't start writing until the 80s.
Hall & Oates had the #1 hit in the country when I was born. It was the great song Rich Girl, which became Hall & Oates' first of 6 #1 hits. And although I'm not a girl, John, how did you guys come up with the song Rich Girl?
Well, actually, Daryl came up with the idea for that song because a guy who was friends with his girlfriend was visiting, and he was heir to a fast food fortune. And he was a rich kid who really had no responsibility and no sense of anything, basically, and he was a loose cannon, and I think Daryl got the idea from that, and of course, saying rich guy wasn't going to cut it, so it became Rich Girl.
And was the song Kiss on My List supposed to be interpreted as kind of an anti-love song?
Well, I guess it is. I mean, it's really, what the song is saying, and I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to the subtleties of the lyrics, but, what the song's saying is your kiss is on my list of the best things in life. It might not necessarily be the best thing.
Gotcha. Very well said, John. Very well said. I like that. Let's go down the list. Okay, and what was the magic behind the tune, You Make My Dreams Come True? I love that tune.
Simplicity. I think the magic behind that song is the simplicity of it. The fact that it's a great groove, and it's very simple, and it's very direct. You make my dreams come true. Simple as that. Doesn't get any more simple. And people like it, and they relate to it, and the groove is fantastic, and I think because of the rhythm and the groove and the simplicity of the message, that's what it is.
Wonderful, John. And was the tune Private Eyes originally titled Head Over Water? I've heard that from a couple sources.
No, we had a song called Head Above Water back on the Bigger Than Both of Us album.
Okay.
Completely different song. That was a rock and roll song. Private Eyes was actually a Jan Allen idea that she came up with, and Daryl co-wrote with her, and a guy named Warren Pash.
Okay, I love that song, Private Eyes. And the music video, John, they play them on, you can get them on YouTube and stuff. What a great music video that was with the detectives and all that stuff.
Well, we didn't have much choice. We didn't know how to make a music video.
Right.
We put up a black curtain and wore silly clothes, and that was pretty much it.
Still a great story. Was the song I Can't Go For That inspired by some sort of improvisation during the recording session of the album Private Eyes at Electric Lady Studios in New York City?
It was recorded after the band had gone home that day. Daryl had an idea. He was sitting down at the keyboard, and he started riffing on that keyboard riff that you hear. And he turned on the drum machine, which we had a little primitive drum machine, which was, in those days, no one used drum machines, but we had it, and we used it basically for tempo purposes. And he just turned it on, and then he said, grab your guitar, and I played that riff that you hear, and that was basically the whole song. And then, of course, we had a saxophone and vocals, and that was the end of it. So we did it really without the band, and it might be one of the first hits that was ever done with a drum machine.
Did Daryl Hall's girlfriend, Sarah Allen, help you guys write Man-Eater, correct? She helped us with lyrics. Okay.
She would come in and co-write and throw out lyrical ideas. Yes, she was involved in that one.
Now, how did you and Daryl invent the hit One on One?
I don't know. Same way with every other song. You sit around, you throw out ideas, you play a little bit, you sing a little bit, you get a groove, come up with some chord changes. I mean, I can't explain songwriting to you, you know.
Okay, yeah, it's just something that you feel. I totally understand that. The hit Out of Touch, you came up with the idea for the song and the chorus, correct?
That's right.
How were you influenced to come up with the tune Out of Touch? Were you inspired by anything, or how did you come up with that tune?
Well, yeah, I came up with it because I had purchased a synthesizer, and I'm not much of a keyboard player, and the synthesizer had a feature called an arpeggiator, which automatically played notes for you.
Okay.
And I was just fooling around with it because I was trying to learn how to use the machine. And I hit this button, and it made a certain sound. And I liked the sound of it, and I started playing around with the melody, and I came up with a theme for the chorus and used the synthesizer as the starting point. Then I put vocals on it and guitars and all that stuff. And then I played it for our producer, Arthur Baker, who the guy we were working with at the time. And he thought it was a hit. He said it sounded like a hit. And then Daryl and I got together, and we did the verses together.
And John, tell me what you are working on personally today. I know you've got this great blues band that you're playing with. Tell me all about that.
Well, this is a chance for me to pay tribute to all the musicians and great music that kind of made me who I am as a musician. The stuff that this is the stuff that predates Daryl Hall and I. Uh-huh. This is the music of my youth, and I just felt it was time in my life where I could get back to that and revisit it and rediscover what made me want to be a musician. And it's everything from folk blues, folk music, early R&B, early rock and roll. And I've got this amazing band, and I tour quite frequently with them. And I'm on tour right now, literally. We're playing a show. We got 4 in a row here in the middle of that in the Midwest. And we have a live album of the band playing. It's called the Bluesville Sessions. So it's a live album of my band basically playing our live show.
Okay, wonderful. And John, what is your website for all the music and material that you're working on these days?
www.johnoates.com. Very simple. One word, John Oates.
Perfect, John. Well, thank you, John, for being a part of the 80s Experience tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.